Hello, college football fans, and welcome to episode 46 of College Football Throwdown. I'm your co-host, Alex Schmitz, and today I'm joined by my dad, Peter Schmitz.
Hi there, Husker fans and college football fans.
That's right, and we are coming to you live today in person from the Commons on the campus of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
That's right, absolutely. We are in the epicenter of the universe here in Lincoln, Nebraska, in the Love Library. Enjoying some time here on the campus, and the day after the victory against Rutgers University.
That's right. We're going to be talking about, we were all there live for the games. We're going to be talking about the Rutgers game, but we have some special guests with us today, don't we?
We do. We have a couple of members of the current Boneyard here at the University of Nebraska. We have Hailey Fischer here right to my left, and then also Olivia Schmitz. Hailey is a junior here at the university, and Olivia, of course, is my daughter, your sister, and who is a freshman, the first authentic Husker from the family. So there she is.
Yes.
Are we ignoring our other cousins who have gone here?
No, I mean from our family.
From your spot.
Immediate family. Yes.
Immediate family.
So,
yes.
and Hailey, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, and Hailey is my cousin.
Yes.
So that's how we're all related here.
That's right. All fans of the Cornhuskers, and so we're excited to have a special edition here where we get to not only speak to you right from the campus, but also get the perspective of a couple of current students and their thoughts on the team.
All right. So Hailey, why don't you say hello?
Hi, everyone.
And Olivia, you say hello.
Howdy.
All right. Howdy do.
So normally about this time we would have our proverbial official opening of the beverage. However, Alex, you placed that in front of me, and it was so enticing. I couldn't resist. I couldn't help myself, and I opened it before the podcast began. So apologize to those listeners who anticipate the opening of the beverage. I'm not going to be able to do that this week because, by golly, I'm already drinking it. Sorry.
Muscle memory commanded that you just open the can.
Yes, I'm sure
that is true.
There are many listeners who are just heartbroken at this moment that we missed out on that great tradition. But on last week's podcast, Dad and I predicted the scores we believed that the Rutgers game would be. You predicted a high-scoring game of 35-28 with a Nebraska victory, and I predicted a little lower on 21-17. Turns out it was a little bit between the two of us with a 28-17 score. However, I think I get closest since I got one of the scores right.
That's right. That's true.
So they only scored 17, and technically their offense only scored 10. Right. Tanner Lee gave them the other 7.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So we've got some stats and specific things to talk about the game, but why don't we just go around and give general impressions. What was like the number one thing you're thinking about when you were leaving the stadium? Dad, why don't we start with you?
Well, my thought is that the second half of the Rutgers game could be an aberration, just dumb luck kind of thing where we stumbled onto some things that happened to work against a Rutgers team that's maybe not very good. Or was it a turning point? Was it a moment of clarity where just maybe our offensive and defensive coordinators began to figure out what this team could do? Because the second half was played quite well by the defense particularly, but even the offense began to discover a running game that we've been clamoring on this podcast for quite some time. Maybe, just maybe, he discovered the value of a running game.
Indeed. Hailey, what were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, especially after the season we've seen so far, any Husker game makes me really nervous. I was really happy to see the Huskers pull out a great win after going to the game last week and unfortunately leaving disappointed. The big thing on campus in the Boneyard is we always say we're a second-half team, so I was glad to see that was proven right, maybe like once again. Would I like to see them do better in the first half? Yes, especially with some hard-hitting teams coming at us.
That's right. And Olivia?
I'd say because we improved so much on the second half rather than the first, I was able to come out of it with a very optimistic viewpoint. I was pretty much ready to kind of lose hope for the season. Not for the team, of course, but for the season if we lost this game, and to see us actually play really well. Our defense held up really well, which was great to see. Love the black shirts. And our offense, we got Ozigbo on the field, and I love Ziggy, so that was great.
Ziggy Stardust.
Ziggy, yeah. So it got me some renewed hope for the season that, you know, we really do have some power behind us to make something out of this season.
Yep. Well, and Dad and I were sitting together right at like the 40-yard line.
Great seats.
Not too high up, so we got a great view of the field. And of course, I had him talking in my ear about Langsdorff running the football.
Talking more like yelling in your ear.
Like hushed anger, so he wouldn't swear at the kids nearby.
Yeah, he had to remind me that there were children nearby.
But yes, my general takeaway was that I liked how our defense played once again. One stat I saw was that in the second half, we only let up, I believe it was 62 yards and 2 first downs, a lot of which probably came on that last drive where we were playing a bit more prevent.
Mm-hmm.
So Diaco has proven that he's able to make good halftime adjustments, at least against these lesser teams that we faced so far. We haven't, the real test could be Wisconsin in 2 weeks. And I'm still concerned about the offense. Like that we were running the ball more, but I want to see more unpredictability in the types of runs that we're going to be doing. And I would also like to see some more confidence from the coaching staff in Patrick O'Brien and our other quarterbacks, because if Tanner Lee continues to be interception prone and mistake prone as he has been in these first few games, I don't see why we should keep going back to him if Patrick O'Brien is actually as good as they say he is.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting take, Alex. I would say my perception of the coaches and their view of it is a little bit opposite of that they stuck with Tanner for the reasons of trying to show him that they're confident in him, that they believe that he is still the guy and all that sort of stuff. And in fact, in the post game, Coach Riley simply acknowledged that he never considered taking Tanner out. Now, I know that's might be a little shocking to believe, but that was at least his public comment, was never even considered it. And I think, though, that what we saw in the second half certainly has a little bit of Coach Riley's stamp on it. I think he recognizes that he needs to get maybe a little more involved, particularly on the offensive side of the ball in terms of play calling. I have a feeling that the guys next to us indicated, or they believed that, having watched a lot of games, that this was probably the most they've seen Riley actively engaged with the headset on while playing or while the game is going on. So that would suggest to me that he's probably a little bit more involved in play selection than he ever has been before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting note about the headset and the play calling and all that. And you mentioned that during his years at Oregon State, his best years were when he was the offensive coordinator.
Calling plays.
Right, that was kind of his background.
Right.
And so whether it's him actually calling the plays or it's just him telling Langsdorff to pursue these particular types of play calls, if this happens, go to this.
Right.
Or on this down in this part of the field, or whatever the case may be. But there definitely was a dramatic shift in the second half, more towards a comfortableness with running the football and bringing Ozigbo out there, which it was great. Like the first time he came out, he carried the pile for 8 yards, and the whole stadium was cheering.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The boneyard lights up when Ozigbo's name is called. Everyone just goes yeah,
goes crazy.
Yeah,
Boneyard loves him.
There is definite adoration for Ziggy among the students.
I agree with that.
Are you the only one that calls him Ziggy, or do a bunch of people call him Ziggy?
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
I'm glad I'm not crazy. I called him Ziggy Azalea at one point. I thought that was pretty clever.
So I wrote down some stats from the game. In terms of total yards, it ended up being 306 for us, 194 for them. We were about equal.
What was ours?
306 to 194.
Wow.
We only had 109 passing yards. They had 126. And we had 197 rushing yards. They only had 68. So they're averaging like 2.8 yards per run, whereas we were at 4.2. You recall at the end of the first half, they had quite a bit more time of possession than us because we had gotten that one quick score. But by the end of the game, it was 35 minutes for us, 24 for them.
Wow,
so
that was really dominant. I suspect the numbers in the second half, if you just looked at time of possession in the second half, it must have been like 20-10.
Probably because, think about how many times we 3-and-outed them.
Right,
you
right.
know. And then, although when you look at third down conversions, they were 3 for 12. So, once again, good on our defense's part.
Right.
And we were 8 of 17, so not even at 50%.
Well, yeah, and again, that's for the whole game. I would be curious to see how many third downs we did convert in the second half. I'm inclined to believe that maybe it was a little bit more than 50%, maybe 55 or 60.
Yep.
So that's good stuff. Those are good indicators, if you will. And just the feel of the game. Regardless of the number of yards or even the number of points, although obviously getting enough points to win the game was important, but just the feel of the game, that you felt like, okay, we've got the ball and we're going to keep it for a while. You had that feeling in that second half. Did not have that feeling in the first half. Frankly, haven't had that feeling other than at certain points in the Arkansas State game. Just not much this season. So that's where I'm saying I don't know what this is yet. I don't know if this is just Langsdorf kind of conceding to the request of Coach Riley or something, or whether this is a conscious awareness or aha moment for him to say, okay, maybe I do need to do a little bit more of this so that I can be more effective. And let's not just focus on the, I don't want to be just the run the ball guy, right? Which is a thing, to use your term. It's more than just about running the ball. It's also about the types of passing plays that you call. This is so critical, and we talked at some length about it last week, and it's amazing. I'm going to, not to try to beat our chest too much here, but I want people, if they're listening to this podcast, be sure and go back and listen to podcast 45, the one before this game, because I think if you watch this game and you watch or listen to that podcast, you will hear us call for almost all the things that were successful in the second half of the game, and specifically even the types of pass plays. What I'm getting to is pass plays that are fairly high probability, lower risk pass plays. When you have a quarterback that is struggling in a way our quarterback was struggling, you have to put him in a position to have success. And so that means kind of tightening up the belt a little bit in terms of the types of plays you call and being simple. And when you have a physical advantage over your opponent, which we did in this case against Rutgers, there is no reason whatsoever that we couldn't have gone to that and been successful the whole game with little tight end, square end, tight end curls, wide receiver squares, the play action passes, some things where we were staying pretty tight, probably 10 to 20 yard length for most of the passes, and then let the guys catch it and maybe do a little something afterwards. But even if they don't, you're moving the chains. So many times in the first half of this game, this past game, and other games where we've struggled, it's second down and 8, and we're throwing the ball 25 or 30 yards down the field, and then it's 3rd and 8, and we do it again. And it's like, you got to understand that it's about getting first downs. The touchdowns will take care of themselves. You just have got to get the first downs. And for whatever reason, until the second half of this game, Langsdorf appeared not to understand that. So.
Well, and even in the third quarter, it felt like there were some growing pains because they were starting to run the ball more. But it felt like, and even in the fourth quarter sometimes, it felt like they would give the ball to the running back, whether it was Wilbon or Ozigbo or whoever, and then they just go straight down the middle where there's this densely packed wall of guys, and he would just go down, and we wouldn't get, or we'd get like 1 yard or no yards.
What was your term for that, Olivia?
It was, I use a metaphor of the frozen butter, so it's like you were trying to be the knife. And you want to cut through butter that's been out on the counter for hours rather than butter that's been sitting in the freezer. And that was freezer butter. And I was really, because we were all really ticked off in the Boneyard because the first half, felt like it was watching Northern Illinois all over again. To a lesser extent. It wasn't quite the hot mess. No. But we were seeing a lot of the same patterns. So we were really frustrated. And then he was finally running the ball, but he was doing it so poorly that I got frustrated because it's like, this is what I wanted, but not at all what I wanted.
Right.
Because it's not it being done well, and that frustrated me.
And that gets back to something you mentioned, maybe you want to expound on a little bit. Types of running plays, right? Not all running plays are equal, right? And you want to have some variety. And we tend, because of the kind of system that we have, where we have a single back set a lot and that sort of thing, we're often doing these draw play type of running plays where the quarterback takes the snap from center and then comes back to the running back, and then the running back takes the ball and runs. And there's a delay as a result of that. And oftentimes that's a good thing because it allows your blocking to kind of get set and start to open up a hole. So it's good from a timing standpoint. However, when you're just wanting to establish a running game, it's often good to just attack the line of scrimmage and pound it. And even some of those plays that you're saying were into the frozen butter, okay? The thing with that is that some of that is softening. You know, you have to do that to set up some other things where you hit in that spot in the inside and you're only getting 2 yards or 1 yard or no yards or whatever. But then 3 plays, 4 plays later, if you're truly committed to a running game, you're setting things up where maybe the quarterback keeps it. In this case, it's not going to be because of Tanner Lee, but maybe it's a situation where instead he takes a cut back and he goes to the opposite side of the center, and boom, they're expecting it to be a pound it right there, and then all of a sudden there's a huge hole there because all their guys are already taking that extra step. So some of it is set up. But you're absolutely right. There were times when I felt like, okay, Langsdorf has been told he has to run the football, and he is running the most stupid sequence of the same play, just to be able to turn around and look at the coaches and say, see, I told you so, we can't run. You know, that type of thing. It almost seemed like that. I'm sure that was not the case at all, but it was frustrating to watch.
Right. Well, and I've echoed this on previous podcasts with this QB draws, because that seemed to be like the only thing that we were doing for a good portion of the game.
Well, draw plays, not QB draws, but just draw plays.
Right,
to the
draw
running
plays.
back. Yeah.
Draw plays to the running back,
come
right?
on, Alex.
Oh, Olivia's calling me out.
I have no idea
because they take a while to develop, you know, the defense is able to kind of anticipate that when they know you're going to do it and try to get there in that backfield, you know, stop you before you get there, or you know, there's
sides.
Or the line closes up and things like that. Although I do remember there was a play or two where we were running Ozigbo to the outside, and it didn't get us much, and we were like, why aren't we going down the middle, especially with him, because he's a big power back, he's not super fast.
And that has something to do with too. Yeah, personnel. Obviously, if you've got Mikhail Wilbon, then he's a guy that his running style is more of a lateral movement, kind of shift, vision, find the hole and take it, right? Whereas Ozigbo is more of the hole's going to be there, and if it's not there, I'm going to create it.
Which was why we love him.
Right.
Yeah.
And
but now there are times, and we noticed this in the game, there was one play, and it might have been either a 3rd down or a 4th down. It was a critical down, and we ended up having to go off the field because of it. But he hit the hole and got no gain. And if he had just taken one step to the left, it was open because they had done what I said. They had the defense had moved in anticipation of that run play, and they had already committed to that pile of butter instead of cutting back and going there.
It was a pile of butter instead of a stick of butter.
Stick of butter, yeah.
And I know you might disagree with me on this, because I actually liked how they were switching out Ozigbo with Wilbon and the new guy, the true freshman.
Yeah.
In terms of, because that gives you, you know, you got Ozigbo as like your power guy to get you on 3rd and 2 to get you the first down, and then Wilbon might be the guy to sweep to the outside and things of that nature. Yeah. So I like varying that up. However, I would agree that if Ozigbo is getting 4 yards every carry and they just can't stop him, then sometimes it's good to just let it happen.
I'm all about rotating running backs. I think that's a critical thing, but I'm a believer in if a running back's having a degree of success, you allow him to continue for the series. You might replace him and put the other guy in for the next series and give him a series to do what he can do. But if you've got somebody that's get into the flow of the game, and if you're running the ball with success, and here's another thing I would say that was a compliment to, because I'm always so critical of Langsdorf, need to find those opportunities to praise him. When they started having success running the football, they were smart enough to pick up the pace. Not that they went fast, no huddle, but they were coming up to the line with 18, 19 seconds on the clock, and boom, they were snapping that ball and running it again. So they raised the pace of the offense just a little bit when they started having success running it, to tire and wear down the other team, make it just a little bit harder for them to substitute, that sort of stuff. And that was great. I love to see that. And this gets back to another message that's been consistent on the podcast, particularly this year. That stuff that I'm all describing to you, high school.
Right.
It's not complicated. I think that Langsdorff tries to make this too complicated. We are playing football. We're not rocket scientists. So let's keep it that way.
Right. And I noticed, I told you this as well, in the fourth quarter, I remember seeing one of their linebackers, he kind of was shrugging down near his waist. It was clear that they were either a little confused about the scheme, or they were just tired and couldn't stop Ozigbo or whatever it was,
Right.
So that's the thing with that kind of consistent running game, and when you're pushing them like that, and when our defense is keeping them to 3 and outs, you're able to tire out their defense eventually,
Right.
and you get those games in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Now I want to hear from you girls, as part of the whole, just generally, what was it like being in the bone zone? And
Bone zone?
Zone.
Boneyard.
Boneyard.
Husker
Whatever.
are
Just
you?
sympathetically patting Alex's shoulder,
Yes.
you tried.
Boneyard, excuse me. And what...
Bone zone rhymes, though. I like that.
It's too close to bozo.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
We'd get crap for that.
Yeah, probably. Fine. Boneyard. Just talk about the general experience, because there were some times even over on our side of the field, on the opposite side, where that whole stadium was rocking. It was nice and fun. But then also when Tanner Lee threw that interception at the start of the second quarter,
it was-
I
crushed it.
I'll let Hailey
It
take
was
this one.
physically painful. It was just revisiting last week when it happened again and again. And it was just the Boneyard is there to support this team, and we put so much into it, and then you see a play like that, and I swear, everybody around you just drops. You can't even stand anymore. You're gripping your chest, and you're like, what is happening? Please let us not have another game like last week. It's really rough. It's, we're supposed to, be positive, and we want to support the Huskers, and you do have students, that do that. Olivia's great at that. She stayed positive the whole time. She was angry. She was pacing.
I don't like
I just let her pace.
That's right. She's my
But,
daughter.
And then you have the
No booing.
students that just completely retract and are we suck, we're terrible, Tanner Lee needs to leave, and I admit I did get to that point where I was please take Tanner Lee off the field. I can't with him anymore. But
Hailey was not a Tommy.
No, I was
Armstrong.
I was not a Tommy
fan,
Armstrong fan.
and she was like, "This is me saying this, but I want Tommy Armstrong back." Oh no!
It was.
I will say it was interesting to see the kind of transformation, because I was almost afraid that students were gonna boo at Tanner when they're doing that whole starting lineup thing on the jumbotron,
Before the game.
Right.
You did.
Yeah, before the game. And a few did, but not the majority were still cheering and stuff like that, which was good. But generally, Tommy's, or not Tommy.
Tanner.
Too many T's. Tanner's getting a lot of crap from the student section that he doesn't deserve. That's
It's
more
true.
of Langsdorff and the coaching staff. And he's kind of taking the brunt of it in that regard. But, and so there's a lot of unhappy customers, in that first half, especially during the interception, because we're just this is exactly why we want you benched, and we want O'Brien out there.
Well,
But during the second half and stuff like that, I started hearing more cheers. It's come on, Tanner,
Come on,
you got
Tanner,
this.
you got this. You're
we
okay.
need you. Yes, it was more of this kind of encouraging
Supporting.
or almost desperate. We really want you to succeed.
And it's at the drop of a hat too. You
Yeah.
know, 1 minute they're booing him on the field, and the next minute you just hear these claps.
that's
you
football
can do
fans
it.
for
You
you.
can
It's
do
an
it.
absolute roller coaster.
that is the
so
definition of fickle fan right there.
It was. I mean,
Oh,
we
it's
were
so
definitely
true.
into it though, because every time there's a third down for the defense,
Oh, yeah.
we start throwing the bones, and they play
Throwing the
the same
bones,
song. And every time after a touchdown, when they'd do a kickoff, a punt or whatever, I always get mixed up. We take off our right shoes and we pound them in the air. That's stuff like that, and that's always really fun.
Never give up on all that stuff.
Yeah. So the traditions continue no matter how down the cards may be.
But it is amazing, we were noticing, after we had a good defensive series, and then we took the ball and we scored, and the energy in the crowd it went up exponentially. It was just enormously different than what it had been just 5 minutes before, So that is so critical to to the success of the home field advantage that we do have, that our team needs to be able to feed off of that. Sometimes I feel like they kind of wait for it, like it's part of our job to provide that. But it's got to be a both way type of thing. They've got to be putting in the effort, and that's why you guys love Ozigbo, is because at least during games he demonstrates an unwillingness to go down and an effort level that is to be admired. And so that's something you want to encourage, and that's traditional Nebraska football. That's what I grew up watching, and so that's huge.
Well, and I'm sure you guys would agree that when we got that interception and took it back for the touchdown, the whole stadium went crazy. But then, of course, it got taken back by the block in the back, which was unfortunate, and we ended up getting a field goal out of that instead.
Well, that's just like okay, so here's another example similar. We got a touchdown in this case, but it's still one of those things that I was just harping on with Alex on. Okay, Pearson gets the punt return, has a great punt return, really good blocking, good vision, and he almost gets a touchdown.
Yeah.
Should have gotten a touchdown, except the guy that was blocking, the final guy, was out there in front, didn't knock the guy on his ass. He kept, patty caking with this dude instead of finding a way to get that guy on his ass. And I said to Alex, that one of the differences is they're still all high-fiving and stuff. I guarantee you, back in the 80s and 90s, when that would happen, there would have been both coaches and fellow players, leaders on the team that would have been after that kid who was part of the punt return unit that didn't knock that guy on his ass, and somebody would have been in his face. And during film study and review, they would have been harping like heck about the fact that, hey, that guy's got to be on his ass. If that guy's on his ass, then that's a touchdown for our punt returner, for Pearson. And that's a big deal, because then we had to run offensive plays. We could have fumbled the ball. We could have had penalties that would have taken us backwards. We may not have ended up having to kick a field goal or got nothing, and it was only 2 yards. You get those damn 2 yards. You get them now. So you've got to have that almost fatalistic, this is the last play of my life kind of mentality every time you're out there on the field, especially if you're on a special teams. I mean, that might be the only time that kid plays. I don't even remember who it was. But the point is, you have to have that level of just fanatical effort when you're in that thing. And those are the kinds of plays that turn a game around.
Yeah. Well, and the one last specific play I thought of that might be worth talking about is I remember in the first half, it was a third down and relatively short, and Tanner Lee swung out of the pocket to the left, and he had space to run. He would have gotten the first down if he had run it. But then there was a guy open in the left corner of the end zone. He threw it, caught it, touchdown. Yeah. It was cool. Yeah. But at the time, you were still angry in that.
Yes.
Same. Olivia was too.
I was so pissed.
We gave up. We could have had the guaranteed first down versus the touchdown, which was a good throw and he was open and all that, but it could have gone wrong and we would have had to kick a field goal.
Even just being open, that guy had like 2 guys on him.
He
wasn't that open. Either way, I was really frustrated, because even there's just this very clear path, and Tanner doesn't even kind of run for it, because he's still prepping to throw, so he's taking some steps forward, but he's still ready to throw. So I was thinking he's going forward, he's using his feet, but he still ended up throwing it in the end. I'm like, well, we got a touchdown, but he's done the same thing before and gotten a pick 6, and it really scared me.
Definitely a play where everyone just held their breath, and you're like, if you mess this up, we are not going to be happy.
He was going to face Mama's wrath. Yeah.
Mama's wrath. That's what he raised it.
That's another term.
Love it. Yeah, well, there definitely were several times where, he was passing it into coverage and everybody clinches up. I can tell.
Well, now, and so here's more of the technical things about that play that you guys were just talking about. Tanner Lee is a right-handed quarterback. He had scrambled away from the pressure out of the pocket. It was not necessarily a designed play-action pass, I don't believe. It may have been, but I don't think it was. I think it was in a scramble situation. And he was running to his right or to his left. For a quarterback running to your left to have to stop, and be able to turn and set yourself enough that you can throw an accurate football to the corner of an end zone. And that pass, even though it was only 10 yards of real estate, right? We were probably at the 12-yard line, or
I think we were further away than that.
No, it was
something like that.
15 or
Well,
20.
my point is the pass was even longer, right? It was probably twice as long as the actual distance to the end zone when you take in the angle and all that sort of stuff. And there are so many things that can go wrong with that. And then now you're kicking a field goal. Versus you've got green grass in front of you. You have a guaranteed first down. You take the ball, you get the first down, and you pass on giving up the touchdown because that wasn't guaranteed. Now, if that's second down or first down, I want him throwing that football. But on third down in the red zone, I get the first down. I don't care about the touchdown then. What's more important is the first down. And one of the fundamentals then for me about this offensive staff is they don't seem to understand the importance of just getting first downs and letting touchdowns take care of themselves. We will find our way, because what first downs do is give you confidence, and they deplete the confidence of the opponent. Mm-hmm. There's nothing more devastating than a 12-play drive. The gentleman who was sitting next to us in the stands, he says, I don't think Danny Langsdorff has ever seen a 13-play drive. He doesn't know what that means. And I thought, you know what, you're right. You're absolutely right. Because that guy doesn't seem to understand. Even when we started having success running the football, what happened? We ran the football and we got like 2 first downs or 3 first downs in a row, and then he threw it. Mm-hmm. Then he can't help himself. Stay with the running game. Once you start getting things now don't do this exact same play, but throw some diversity in there, but stay with it until they stop it, because that's empowering for your offensive line. They get excited, they get geeked about it, and amazingly, offensive linemen get less injured when run blocking than pass blocking. That's when offensive linemen get hurt, because then they get blindsided, they're backing up, they trip over each other, they turn ankles. That's when offensive linemen get hurt, as opposed to run blocking, where you're just a road grader and you're out there pushing people around, and then boom, you get up, you're getting up off your knees and you're fine. You're not getting up off your backside, Mm-hmm.
So Dad, I have a question for you then, because it seems like, just watching Tanner play the past few games, it seems like he really does have like an aversion for him just tucking the ball and running. Like, he'll give it to the running back, if that's the play or whatever.
Right.
But he seems so reluctant to run the ball himself. Mm-hmm. And what do you think is the reason for that? Like, is it avoiding injury? Is he just really slow? Is he really dedicated to doing exactly what Langsdorff tells him to do? Like, what do you think is causing that?
I think there's 3 things. Number 1, look at Tanner Lee the next time before the game.
He's just
He's
tiny.
not
a big guy.
very athletic. No, look at his legs. Look at the way he walks. He doesn't even look like an athlete. In fact, I made that comment. You look at his legs and the way. There's a certain look that an athlete has. They have kind of squared up legs. Mm-hmm. They're balanced in how they walk. You can just tell that guy's athletic. I mean, just the way they walk, you can kind of tell, right? They got a step, bounce in their step stuff. He doesn't have any of that. He looks like kind of a older guy. He just does. To me, he does not have that athletic look. And so I think, number 1, he just isn't that much of an athlete. You put him in a track team or a basketball team, he may not be very good. But what he does have is a rocket on his shoulder, okay? And that's what everybody's told him his whole life. It's what's brought him to this point where he's a starting quarterback at the University of Nebraska. So he's got a strong arm. But he has an absolute aversion to running because he is slow and he's not very athletic. Okay? Number 2, I would say, yes, he is trying to execute according to the coach's plan, according to Langsdorff's plan. And they don't want him running the football because they don't want him getting hurt. And number 2, they know he's slower than a 7-year age. So,
good to know.
But there still has to be some of that. And that's where, frankly, Patrick O'Brien and certainly Gebbia, and this was some of the interesting insight that the guys that we were sitting around suggested. They're convinced that the true number 2 quarterback is the true freshman Gebbia, okay, not Patrick O'Brien. Now, right now, we very much want to redshirt Gebbia, so we save that year. Mm-hmm. But if you're Mike Riley at this point, every game, your job's on the line. Yeah. the red shirts mean nothing now, which is why I think we pulled a few red shirts yesterday, because there's no preserving for the future, because there ain't no future for you if you don't win and perform well now. And frankly, even going back to the spring game, Gebbia is a guy that just from a heady, athletic, tuck and run it, good decision maker, but yet still has a hell of an arm and all that stuff. He's the guy that in the context of the game itself, looked to be the best quarterback. But his problem is he's a string bean, and he needs this year of redshirting to bulk up so he can handle the rigors of being a Division I quarterback. So they desperately want to keep that red shirt on him. But if I'm Coach Riley, I am preparing him to play. And we'll see how it goes. But if he has to replace Tanner Lee, don't be surprised if they pass over Patrick and they go straight to Gebbia.
Mm-hmm. That would
Gebbia, I think is how you pronounce it.
Yeah, that would be interesting for sure. So, I think we've reached kind of a conclusion of the Rutgers game.
Yeah.
Our whole talk is that we believe we saw some improvement in this game. The defense.
I was going to say, talk defense a little bit, because we really have ignored the
They were good.
They were good.
Well, right.
We're happy.
There's a little less to
with
talk
the
about.
black shirt.
There were still some plays, especially near the beginning, where you were getting upset in that, they were doing that thing that Diaco was doing, like in the Arkansas State game, where we were stopping the big play but letting them get the 5-yard pass or the 10-yard pass.
10-yard pass.
Yeah, and things
Ridiculous.
like that. And there were some times where they had people open and they just dropped the ball.
Correct.
And things like that. So there were some mistakes on their part. They had some penalties and things like that helped us out. But I would say that consistently throughout each of these games, we've seen the defense get a little better each time.
Yeah.
And being able to
Adjust.
hold them to 10 points, with 7 being scored by the interception, and keeping them those many 3-and-outs in the second half. I got to say that's a victory for our defense.
Right. I would agree. I think I would say we're seeing progress there, and I was particularly excited about the play of some of our defensive linemen in the game yesterday and our linebackers. We had some linebackers who played really well, and then we had this what's his name get lost for the game because of that stupid targeting call, which we're not even going to go into because it's just painful. But the bottom line is we were in an already depleted area, forced to bring another guy in, and he had to play a lot of minutes he wasn't expecting to play, and they did it. They did a good job. There weren't a lot of breakdowns necessarily, but I'm still very concerned about the defense, because what we saw in the good results was Rutgers making mistakes, dropping passes that were very catchable, misfiring on some pass plays where guys were wide open. Our coverage until late in the game, for whatever reason, in that late third quarter and early fourth quarter, before we went into prevent mode there at the very end of the game, we were coming up and playing in their face way more than I've seen in the previous games. Now, I don't get to see every game in person, so it's so much better when you can see it in person. You get to see the 22 versus only getting to see whatever the camera zooms in on, which is typically the offensive and defensive line, and you don't see what's going on with the defensive backs and their last-minute adjustments where they either back away or they come up on somebody right away, right? So those are important little caveats that we're starting to see. I still am not seeing any pressures that work. When we bring a blitz, it never gets home. We just don't get home. What did we have? Maybe 2 tackles for loss or sacks.
There weren't that many of them, but there were definitely times where we got pressure on him and made him release it quicker or make a mistake, things like that.
But I think there's still work to be done, but I see progress, and no doubt, and I think we can. I like the 3-4 defense conceptually. I think he needs to get way more creative with his blitz packages, and I want him to remain more aggressive. I'd like to see him come and be aggressive early. And my only hope is he's just getting reps and all that, and he's building confidence in his guys, and that he's going to unleash that to a larger extent than he has before. Not that he's all of a sudden going to become Mr. Aggressive, but he's going to get way more aggressive when we play Wisconsin in a couple of weeks. And that assumes that we continue to get better and beat Illinois on Friday night.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
Friday night game.
Yes, so yes, it's a Friday night game. A little unusual, so we're gonna have a little less time to prepare. And they had a bye week this past week, so they've had 2 weeks to prepare for us, which means we need to be a little more
danger
cautious.
Will Rogers, absolutely.
That's right, danger Will Rogers. So what is it that you are most interested in seeing in the Illinois game in terms of like what they're bringing to bear against us? What do you think the dynamics are?
Illinois has some individual players that are quite good. Their talent level is, I think, higher than many people expect. They have not shown on the field, however, the kind of team chemistry and consistency that you would want in a good football team. So they're still struggling. But their quarterback, I think, is a returning guy. They have some wide receivers that are very talented. So they're going to present some problems, particularly in the passing game. I'm hopeful that, like this game, we're going to be able to shut down their running game. They have some good running backs. Don't get me wrong, they do. But I'm hopeful that we can neutralize that because of our defensive line and that sort of thing, and our linebacker play against the run. So if we can do those things, then we can kind of make them somewhat one-dimensional, where we get them behind the chain, so to speak, and then they have to throw it, right? And that maybe limits the way that they can damage us.
Right.
But I am anxious to see how our offense looks, especially in the first half. Do we come out and try to establish a running game in a mode similar to what we did in the second half of this one? Or do we do something different? Do we go back to trying to throw it? So we'll see what's going on with that.
All right, that sounds good to me. I'm looking forward to that game. I'll have to get out of work a little early, being on the Pacific Coast to see the game, but it's a night game, so that'll be interesting. It's at Illinois as well.
Right, it's the way, which sometimes is better for our team. Not to take away from you guys in the boneyard, but sometimes the kids, the players, it's a little lower stress environment.
Yeah,
They're a little bit more about us against the world, and they can really build some more team chemistry. So it's an opportunity for them to build chemistry.
Yeah. Is this our... No, we played at Oregon.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this is our second away game.
Second away game.
For this team.
Yep. So we're going to do our score predictions now for the game. I am going to go ahead and predict based on what you were saying, let's go for 28-17, like this game against Rutgers with the victory.
I am glass half full because we won yesterday, so I'm not in the doldrum bump,
Like last
disaster.
time.
Yeah. So, but I'm going to predict the victory for Nebraska, but I'm going to say we're going to score more points. I think the offense is going to. I'm so hopeful that we learn from this game, and that we're gonna do that. And if we do, I believe we end up scoring 42 points. So I think our score is 42, and I think their score is going to be 21.
Okay, fair enough. Hailey, what do you think?
Oh goodness, I wish I was that positive. Just from what I've seen this year, I mean, if they score 42 points, I'm going to be extremely impressed. But
I do recall that they did score that many in the Arkansas State game.
True.
Well,
that's true. But I'm going to go probably lower like you did. I'll say 28-21.
Okay, 28-21.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say.
You can say the same thing.
Well,
It's okay.
I'm gonna add a field goal onto that. So let's say like 31-21.
All right, we got some good variety in
like
scores.
It. Yep,
We'll see who
absolutely.
ends up winning out.
Now, here's the other thing that we didn't talk about that's important about where we are right now. We're 1-0.
Yes,
Right?
that's
We're
right.
1-0. That's what we kept saying after the game. At the end of the day, as embarrassing and frustrating as the Northern Illinois loss was, and how difficult it is to recognize that we have some massive deficiencies. Our offensive line simply is not playing very well. Now, I'm not going to say they're not any good, because I know that the recruiting history of these kids, and I know that we have a number of starts among our starting group, the number of starts they've had, the number of games they've played. We are a fairly mature group. And that young freshman who came in and played tackle for us, played pretty darn well, it looks like, and held his own. So maybe he's the guy that solidifies that right-hand side. And all of a sudden we can start running. We have a little bit more diversity on left versus right and those kinds of things that allow us to, do some stuff that we weren't able to do earlier in the season. So hopefully that means good things. So 1-0. That's the way you guys got to look at it. It's all about the Big Ten West.
Right.
It's not about
Right.
winning. It's not about winning national championships or any of that. It's about winning the Big Ten West.
Yep.
Step one is over.
We knew the national championship wasn't in the cards for us regardless, so those out-of-conference losses don't really matter. And we got to watch the Iowa game yesterday where Iowa lost a close one to Penn State, which
Should
is...
have maybe beat them, really.
Well, right. But they did end up losing, which is important for us because they're a
Right.
rival in the Big Ten West.
Right.
Which means that we got to go out there, beat Illinois next week, show some more improvement that Langsdorf has learned with the whole running game thing, and then go into that Wisconsin game. And really, that's the real test right there.
Right. Well, yeah. Without overlooking Illinois, nothing matters if we lose to Illinois.
Right.
And I will recall the last time we went to Illinois, I went to that game in Champaign 2 years ago. We lost. In the rain, it was miserable. We outplayed them for 3.5 quarters, and then we were only winning like 13-0 or something, and then they scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and won it, or something like that. I don't remember the exact score, but it was one of those things where we were the dominant team, the better team, clearly on the field for all. But then, like, we had a mistake. I think it was a Tommy Armstrong interception or fumble or something,
Probably.
and then all of a sudden momentum switched and we lost by 1 point.
I'd say, like, instead of New Year's resolution, new game resolution, let's not play like crap in the first half. That's my goal.
First half team.
Yeah,
Just
I'd
the
like
second half
to-
team. Let's just be a team that
Whole
plays
team.
the whole game as well as we can.
I'd like to not have PTSD from Northern Illinois resurface for an entire first half of the game. It'd be good
No.
There we
to
go.
see some of the second half in the first half against Illinois. That's
All
what
right.
I'd like to
I
see.
like this new game resolution. We should email that to Mike Riley
Yeah.
so he can post it on the
Let it
chalkboard
be
for the
known,
team.
yes, what your guys' goals are.
That's right.
Absolutely.
All right.
That is awesome.
Well, Hailey and Olivia, thank you very much for joining us. This was a
Absolutely.
great Schmitz family episode. We did one of these with Uncle AJ a few months
Oh my
ago.
gosh, I loved hearing you guys talk about that and hearing Uncle AJ's prediction for yesterday's
Well, but it's
game.
accurate, though.
I know.
Yeah.
He's really pessimistic, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully, we get to do more, have more guests on the show and things like that. We definitely like doing that. So if you out there enjoyed listening to this podcast, you can email us at huskerpete13@gmail.com. You can find us online at footballthrowdown.podomatic.com. You can leave comments on there or rate us on iTunes, leave us reviews, things of that nature.
Right. They can find us on iTunes too, right?
That's
if
what
they
I said.
if they search for Football Throwdown, they'll track us down.
That's right.
Outstanding.
Okay, very good. So until next week, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.
Go Big Red!